Hello. So in case you don't know, which you probably don't, I was an art major in college as well as a psychology major. And in college, I learned about a lot of really cool artists, their biography, their artwork, their impact on the art world, and even in every life. And unfortunately, I don't really get to talk about them in my everyday life. And I want to change that. So today I'm going to start by talking about Frida Kahlo. Just a heads up, I did make a PowerPoint. I like making PowerPoints and presentations, and I like doing research. So if I'm looking over here, that's the PowerPoint that I'm looking at. So Frida Kahlo is a well-known Mexican female artist. She was born on July 6th, 1907 and died on July 13th, 1954. She was born and raised and lived and died in, and I'm going to mispronounce this, I apologize, but she was born in Coyoacan, Mexico, or Coyoacan, Mexico. Her father was of German and Hungarian descent, while her mother was from Mexico and of Spanish and Native American descent. In 1929, Frida Kahlo married well-known artist and muralist Diego Rivera, and the two had a pretty rocky relationship, which is expressed through her work. They actually got divorced in 1939, but they remarried again in 1940. So as a child, Frida Kahlo had polio, which caused her to have a limp. And later, as a teenager, she was actually in a very serious bus accident. She suffered from many injuries that would continue to impact her as an adult. And according to FridaKahlo.org, over the course of her life, she had 30 operations. Through her artwork, she explored her cultural backgrounds as well as her own personal experiences. In fact, in Mexico, her work is held in high regard for her attention to Mexican and indigenous culture, and feminists also hold her in high regard due to the expression of the feminist experience in female form. Okay, so now that we've gone over a very, very, very brief biography for her, I now want to talk about two pieces of her work that are, to me, really impactful and probably two of her more famous pieces. If you're familiar with Frida Kahlo, a few things may come to mind when you hear her name, such as her unibrow, a mustache, Selma Hayek's movie, and her self-portraits. For me, one piece of art that comes to mind is her double self-portrait, The Two Fridas. This double portrait was actually created after her initial divorce with Diego, and the woman in white, who is on the left side, represents Frida Kahlo's European ancestry, and the lady on the left represents Frida Kahlo's Mexican and indigenous heritage. One analysis, and I believe this is correct, and was confirmed by Frida Kahlo at one point, was that these two Fridas represented two sides of Frida Kahlo. One was the Frida Kahlo that Diego Rivera loved or accepted, and the other Frida was the Frida Kahlo that Diego Rivera rejected. According to these sources, the woman in white, who is also the representative of the European heritage for Frida, was the one that Diego rejected, while the other Frida of Mexican and indigenous descent is the one that Diego Rivera accepted. So backstory aside, which is the divorce from Diego, I think that this piece is really impactful and strong and powerful. To me, seeing the heart outside of the chest for both of them is just, it's a little jarring, but it's supposed to be. To me, it seems that this represents actually physical pain too, with this emotional pain of heartache. And if you look a little closer in between the two Fridas, you can see a vein that is connecting them. And that obviously means that even though they're two different sides of Frida, they're both connected, so one cannot be without the other. And I just think it's a really beautiful piece, and I really enjoy it. So the other painting that I want to talk about today also deals with pain, elements of pain and vulnerability, and it's called The Broken Column. It's a pretty graphic representation of the pain that Frida Kahlo was experiencing as a result of the very serious bus accident. So the broken column in the painting is in the middle of her torso, and you can see that it's already starting to crumble, which represents a sort of fragility, and the fact that her chest is open and bare is like a vulnerability to the audience and to the natural elements around her, almost, to me. She has nails all up and down her arms and on her face and her chest, and those it reminds me of like the pins and needles that you get when your limbs fall asleep, except this would be a constant pain, which of course would be very uncomfortable. As you can see, her facial expression is pretty stoic, and it looks calm, but it looks like there are tears coming down her face, which creates this silent sadness, but also a strength too, that she is able to handle this and she can handle the pain. Again, this painting has such a strong message to me, and I do know a few people in my life that suffer from chronic pain of different types, and this painting reminds me of what they're going through and kind of shows just a glimpse of what they may be going through on their day-to-day life. So while those are the only two artworks that I want to talk about, I do want to go on to talk about La Casa Azul, or the Blue House. And this is a house that Frida Kahlo was born in, she was raised in, she lived in, and she even died in this house in Coyoacan, Mexico. After Frida died, her husband Diego Rivera decided to make this house into a Frida Kahlo museum. It wasn't finished until after he died, and I believe it was 1958. If you go there, you can actually see elements of her day-to-day life, as well as some of her artworks and sketches. Hopefully one day I'll be able to see it. And hopefully you too. Okay, so that is actually all that I have about Frida Kahlo right now. She does have a lot. She does have a really interesting story, and I guess I could go more into depth about her husband's affairs, her affairs. She had a drug and alcohol addiction, but I just wanted to focus more on her art and her legacy of expressing her cultural heritage and her own personal experiences. Hopefully you learned something, or at least enjoyed the art. Let me know if there is an artist that you want me to talk about. I love learning about new artists, and I also really like looking at their work. And feel free to leave any comments and questions below. Bye-bye.